if you could please tell me if you guys can hear me. I would appreciate it. Let me actually double check myself. Mhm. All right, something pretty historic was going to take place on this call. We probably should start adding some descriptions to the titles. Beautiful. Okay, so everything's here. MECIK wrote as well. Good morning. Perfect. Okay, that's perfect. So something pretty historic is going to happen today. So let me demo the the bridge and explain some potential issues with the bridge. Or rather with the ecosystem. So you are looking at the Sepolia Goes DAO. That's this version is only available to limited number of team members, some council members as well. It's going to be available to everybody, I think, starting this Monday in 2 days. So as we've been testing it, as you can see, Casper, so that we saw before, Casper, okay, cool, the index, everything is great. Now the question is how to bridge stuff out. So if you want to become a validator or nominator, you would need to have some Casper. And before, the process was, well, go to that faucet, which is essentially one of the channels / groups on Telegram, and essentially beg for Casper. Like, please give me some Casper. Now, the minimum I think will be left at 6.9 Casper required to run a node. Therefore, you'll need to get 6.9 Casper, not Casper, 6.9 Casper. How do you get that? Well, just like before, you would go to the faucet here, you would spend some ETH to get GDAI. Now the functionality also enables you to burn your GDAI back for ETH. So again, this is for the new Ghost DAO version. The ones that you guys have right now, it does not have this option. Since it doesn't have this option, do not try to do this. You just won't be able to do it, right? And also, do not try to burn your old GDAI or whatever. It's not going to work. And if it does work for some crazy reason, chances are you'll just lose your test token. So, I mean, the warning, the disclaimer has been hopefully presented. Again, there's nothing bad that could happen out of this. Like if you lose your Sepolia ETH, just get more, right? So you spend your ETH to get GDAI, okay? Then you go to the DEX. And on the DEX, you would swap your GDAI into eCasper because that's the biggest pair, that's the most liquid pair that everybody will be focusing on as far as the treasury and the users, etc. There may be another pair of GDAI to Casper itself at some point of time, but it needs to get that liquidity. Again, you need to go through the articles of the DEX published to get a better idea of how everything is working. We spend a lot of time writing these articles and in super granular detail. Okay, once you got your eCasper, you then go to stake. Now on the stake, you start staking, press that. Now you're able to swap out of your eCasper to Casper. You can also do Ask Casper if you want, but for the bridging, you will just need Casper. So from eCasper to Casper. Once you have your Casper, congratulations. Now you have an asset, which we're going to discuss later today with inelastic supply. That's how we are resembling the giants of Bitcoin and Monero and Ethereum, etc. That's going to be explained today. Then you can actually breach your Casper. Now, breach, and I'm going to demonstrate how this is how essentially this is breached. So let me see if I. Oh, that was a mistake that I didn't show. I hope it's this one. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can. Oh, can I share it? Beautiful, perfect. Yeah, I didn't prepare it prior, but accidentally forgot about it. Okay, so let's assume this is the new Ghost Eye. Well, it's the same Ghost Eye, just of the new blockchain. So far, we have the new blockchain Casper 4.0, the new test that only has 4 validators. We launched it internally. The reason why we didn't have to go through the process that we went through last time is because last time we had to make sure that everybody has the minimum quantity of Casper. Everybody had to vote, blah blah blah. But this time, Casper can be easily received, right? Easily mined, easily farmed via GhostDAO. So we don't no longer need to go through this whole voting process. Who's going to be in the Genesis block as validators? Like none of this stuff is needed anymore. So we started with 4 validators. And as you can see, so there are a couple of wallets. So let's go to this wallet. One second. Let's go to this wallet. Where am I? Oops. Yeah. Let's go to this medium wallet in the middle, right? So it's the balance is 0.002 Casper. Now, in reality, it's not 0.002 Casper. It's a little bit less. It's 0.001862. The reason why it's 0.001862 is because there's a fee, bridging fee. At this moment, it's at 6.9%. It can be changed through the vote, but it's 6.9% today for every single transaction. So 2 transactions have been made, 1 Casper for each transaction. So minus 6.9%. That's the balance that this wallet specifically received. Now, what I would like to do is actually to try to emulate the process and show you how this is all working, and also go over kind of essentially forecast certain questions that you may have and answer these questions right away while we are going through the process. So I will go back, I'll switch out back to this window here. And on this window here, you see the bridge. So what I have to do, I already have some Casper, so I already went through the process of getting GDAI and then swapping GDAI for eCasper, then wrapping eCasper into Casper. Now I'm bridging Casper. So I already have 0.007, tiny balance so we didn't want to pump the prices. We just wanted to kind of do this for testing purposes. So let me insert my Ghost wallet that I would like to transfer funds towards. So that's going to be the wallet right there. Boom. And then here, I'll just do a tiny 0.001. That's the quantity I would like to bridge off Casper. And then, lo and behold, if I press bridge, there's a MetaMask transaction that pops up. You're not seeing the MetaMask, but it is popping up. So, and I'll just go ahead and confirm the transaction. Let me just, the MetaMask is slow for some reason. Or maybe it's Sepolia, maybe it's MetaMask. Okay, boom, everything loaded. The data, just want to make sure. Okay, I'll just go ahead and confirm it. Yeah, MetaMask is extremely slow, so I'm confirming it. Yeah, it will take some time for them to register everything. All right, so once the transaction goes through, what I would like to do, again, we are still working on certain things, although this stuff will already be live on Monday, in 2 days from today. So we're working on certain things, and what I would like to show specifically is how this stuff works. So, and how is that very different from anything else on the market today? like completely freaking different. So I got my confirmation, I got my hash, hopefully. Let me go here. So this is Sepolia Block Scout. Okay. That's the transaction. So this is the, oh, okay, interesting. Maybe it might take some time, or maybe 1 second. Let me just do this one more time. Will this open up? Okay, beautiful. Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, also state of the industry, see how this does not recognize the transaction hash, whatever. Okay, so this is the transaction. Now, this is what we need to take into account. So we're looking at the block. This is the block number on Sepolia Ethereum, which is 8896509. Okay. So you see how this has 4 block confirmations. So every single block on Sepolia is, based on everything we found so far, Sepolia is trying to completely emulate the mainnet of Ethereum. Mainnet of Ethereum has the block anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds. The average is 12 to 13 seconds per block. Okay, so what does it mean? You essentially organize all transactions into a block, and then these blocks populate. And then some chains are deterministic, some chains are probabilistic. Ethereum is a probabilistic chain. Bitcoin is also a probabilistic chain. Ghost, for example, is a deterministic chain, so is Polkadot. What is probabilistic? Probabilistic means that we have to, like, we're never sure if I send you Bitcoin or I send you ETH or this transaction is being sent. We never know for a fact that this transaction will actually be included in the blockchain. So with probabilistic blockchains, you have the thing called the longest chain. So longest chain is, let's assume 50% of the validators went for kind of version of the chain number 1, and then the other went for the version of chain number 2, and that could happen due to different soft forks in between. So the longest chain that contains the most blocks will win, and that is the version that will be registered on blockchain. Now the question is, how much time does it take with enough probability for this transaction, for any transaction, to really be finalized on the blockchain? And again, this does not just apply to the transaction that I just sent. It applies to any transaction. So typically, on Bitcoin, they typically say 6 blocks, so that's typically an hour. So you send a transaction, you may see Bitcoins right away in the wallet, like within the next block, but it will require around 6 confirmations, 6 blocks at least, right, for you to kind of sleep on this and kind of be sure that this is correct. Because what could happen is you may be seeing a balance, and then that balance may disappear because it's just a wrong thing. So normally, despite the fact that when you send a transaction and the MetaMask instantly sees it, and you're like, oh, good, like Ethereum is so fast. No, it's not fast. Whatever you see has certain probability. Like, let's assume I use my MetaMask and I send you 10 Tether or 10 Ethereum to your MetaMask, and you see it like typically within like half a minute to a minute. And you're like, oh, great, that's it. No. That balance that you're seeing on your MetaMask, which is just a reflection of Ethereum, is, let's assume, 30% probability that your balance that you've seen is correct. In order for you to get to 90% plus probability, you will need to wait for 75 blocks. Now, each block is about 10 to 15 seconds, so therefore you're looking at roughly 15 minutes for your transaction to have a very high probability that it's correct. Now, do you do this or not? That's, again, it's up to you. That's your problem. You're not doing this maybe because you just have no idea how blockchain works, but now you do. So normally you cannot, let's assume you enter in a transaction, some type of contract, somebody's sending you crypto as a payment. You normally would wait on Ethereum, even if you see the balance within a minute, you would normally wait for 15 minutes to make sure that the balance is properly registered, and then only then you say, yes, the payment received in full, for example, right? Things like that. So why is it important? Well, the bridge speed, right, the speed with which it is being bridged is completely 100% related to the finality of the blockchain. So for Ethereum, we should be waiting for 75 blocks, ideally, for the transaction to have a very, very high probability to actually be sent to the smart contract. Otherwise, we're running many risks of hacks associated with finality on Ethereum. Now, on other chains, it actually will be lower. So I would say that the finality, the longest, is on kind of the AAA blockchains such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, and it's much, much shorter for other chains such as Avalanche, Polygon, etc. So I'm preparing you for the fact that chances are, if you're waiting for the bridge, as a validator, you would like to put a pretty significant flag. So far we put a flag of 69 blocks. Not 75, 69, which is close enough to 75. So what I'm trying to say is, before Ghost starts looking into the bridging transaction, the Ghost will be waiting for 69 blocks. Only then it will be processing the bridging transaction. So therefore, prepare to wait for 15 minutes prior to even seeing your bridging transaction. Now, we had that discussion before with some whales, with some council members, and how fast will be the bridge. Thing is, if all the validators say, you know what, fuck that, we trust Ethereum a lot, we don't care about those soft forks, it's okay, that number 69 block can be changed to 1 block. So it's going to be up to every single validator. And then if all the validators, or 2/3 of the validators who are processing this specific bridging transaction, change the minimum from 69 blocks down to 1 block, then the transaction is almost instant. So it's going to be, 15 seconds on Ethereum, and then another 2-3 blocks on Ghost, which is around 20 seconds. So the whole transaction will be around 35 seconds. However, to make it secure, it's highly recommended for validators to keep the number closer to whatever Ethereum has. Now, Ethereum is also in talks of potentially changing their consensus protocol and significantly minimizing the required finality from 75 blocks down to 1 block. That's what Vitalik Buterin wants to do. If he does it, great, we can accelerate. Thing is, nothing is hard-coded. Every validator can do whatever the hell they want. Now, what are the risks for the validator to essentially just switch from 69 blocks down to 1 block? Well, if that validator turns out to be wrong due to being more impatient than others, that validator will be slashed. So now each validator has to be educated enough to figure out what is the best window, for that specific blockchain to make sure that they're not slashed, right? Unless they want to be slashed. So what I'm trying to say is this block here is 509 plus 69 blocks is going to be 78 blocks. So we're looking for 8896509. So if you're going to go to Sepolia Etherscan, so we're looking for the block number. So it's 550 right now. We're looking for the block of 09 plus 69, which is, again, 78. So around the block of 78, which will happen in about whatever, we will be seeing the transaction. Of course, so far, if you look at my terminal here, 1 second, let me switch back if I'm able to. Yeah, so far the balance is the same. The transaction did not even start. Now, in order for me to show you how this thing works, and some of that, of course, will be automated and stuff, but so far it's it's heavily manual currently, because we're trying to we're trying to launch this, and this is testnet stuff, and we'd like to get proper feedback from people who actually use it, right? So something will be happening here, but let me switch back and for now just wait for the right transaction. Again, the state of the industry is such that I have to consistently refresh the page. It's not automatically refreshing, which sucks. So waiting for 20 more blocks. So while we're waiting for 20 more blocks, well, 23 more blocks, right, from block 55 to 78. So there's another thing that is interesting that will lead me to discussion for later today, and also for some upcoming Ghost community calls, is the RPC endpoints. So unfortunately, there are certain restrictions on my end preventing me from sharing certain things, but we established that, so what is an RPC endpoint? RPC endpoint is when your machine is connecting, or your node or whatever, you as a user connecting to a blockchain. So MetaMask in particular has an RPC endpoint hard-coded. Now, there's a website called chainlist.org, which is known to essentially be the go-to source for RPC endpoints, essentially for the connectivity points to connect to nodes to then get access to a specific blockchain. And the idea is for Ghost is to rotate, like essentially take the publicly available RPC endpoints, take some other RPC points, take as many R points as possible, and just rotate them to minimize the potential for hack, and because the hacks may happen, and essentially see what's going to happen. The best course of action, of course, is for every single validator to have their own RPC endpoint. Thus, for every single validator to run its own node of Ethereum, its own node of Bitcoin, its own node of Avalanche, its own node of Polygon. That's going to be the most freaking secure way. And that's what the industry, and that's what Ghost will essentially convert to. I have zero doubts about that. However, in the meantime, we are using publicly available RPC endpoints, amongst many, and we can see that some RPC endpoints are completely flawed. So we did publish a tweet about this because, somebody else noticed similar wrongful behavior from that specific node as well. But essentially, when you are connected to an RPC endpoint, including with your MetaMask, you can be fucking hacked. Nobody talks about this risk, but this risk is very freaking real. We experienced it ourselves. We had 10 or 20 whatever RPC endpoints. One of them was completely presenting wrong information. Absolutely wrong information. What does it mean is when you are taking wrong information from an RPC endpoint, which is flawed, which is malicious, you are becoming malicious. Your data is becoming malicious. You are becoming a malicious validator without trying to really have any bad intent. So the best thing for that is, of course, to kind of have your own RPC endpoint, thus you run your own nodes down the road. So a perfect validator will be the one who will be running their own RPC endpoints. I will get back to that on upcoming calls as well. But the reason why that's amazing is the Ghost is, I believe, is that needed product. Like some people say, like, I do not want to live in the world where there's no Coca-Cola. Like I would like to kind of paraphrase this. I don't want to live in a world where there's no projects like Ghost. Why? The Ghost will, like, as a cross-chain ecosystem product, like actual cross-chain, actually decentralized, it will by default needing to develop the ecosystem of other products around it. So we'll have to be integrating DEXs. We'll have to be integrating borrowing lending protocols. We'll have to be integrating RPC endpoints, thus significantly enriching each single blockchain that we're bridging to. Of course, that's this conversation is so much different from any conversations of our quote competitors such as Axelar and Layer0. They never have to face any of those issues because they're not a proper infrastructure. They're just an Excel spreadsheet. So we get into this. So remember, it was 0.9, so it's closer to 78. So now let me switch. So we have about 2 more blocks, which is about 15 seconds. So let me switch back to this command line here. So, and I'm going to the blocks. Hope you guys should see it. Yeah. So now any second, now the validators will start essentially catching up these transactions, right? So essentially what happened was Ghost was just staying still. It's not like Ghost spent 15 minutes like just doing nothing. No. Like meaning, let me paraphrase. It's not that Ghost was doing like super hard work for those 15 minutes. No. Ghost was just literally holding up. You see, this transaction has the first Ghost slow clap. Boom. So that's the first validator who clapped for it. Now, 1 second. Now another validator clapped for it. Now if you get out of 4, we need 3. So we need 2/3 plus 1. So we need 3 validators to clap for it. Then we're going to get a transaction. So these 2 clapped and boom. So you see how they're also pretty widespread. So one transaction, again, that's all random, right? Like nothing is kind of coded. Like everything is random depending on your internet connection, depending on your electricity, depending on who got the transaction first. So the first person got it, right? Then the second person got it out of these 4 validators, and then 2 more people got it, and they all clapped. Now the question is, after everybody clapped, we need to wait for another 2 blocks of finality, in which in Ghost case that's just about 6 seconds per block, so that's about another 12 seconds. And if I go back to my wallet, Booyah Kasha, we have this balance. It just got updated. I just got bridged. My wallet. My balance here is 0.2793. Now, one person in Wales asked this question. I need to I need to respond to that question in Wales. But question was like, wait a second, but is it really 0.003 Casper that got breached, or is it 0.002793 Casper that got breached? The answer is 0.003 Casper got breached. The whole quantity got breached. The delta between 0.003, well, the reason is why it shows 0.003 here is because it's just rounded, right? But like, it's really just 0.002793. It's really this quantity. But essentially, this quantity was breached, actually. This is the quantity that I received as a user. Where does the delta go to? What do you guys think? Where's the delta? Who gets the delta? Who gets the difference? You can put your thoughts in the chat. It's a 30-second delay, so please push your answers fast. So while you're responding, so that's it. So essentially, again, everything is changeable. But the beautiful thing is, like, it's like, oh, so what? So okay, so the quantity got breached. No. It's not the quantity got breached. Like, that's important. The quantity got breached through a decentralized freaking through a decentralized bridge where all validators had to clap. Of course, not all validators had to clap from perspective of like clapping. 2/3 plus as long as 2/3 of validators plus one clap it and approve the transaction goes through. It's a purely decentralized bridge. This is like insane. Currently, how the bridge works is I send the transaction to a smart contract. There's a guy who looks at that smart contract, says, okay, that's cool, puts that in an Excel spreadsheet, and then pretty much manually forwards that similar quantity from another smart contract. So that's how it works. Of course, I mean, it's not like the process doesn't need to be fully manual, of course, but you know what I mean. Like, there's no dynamics behind this. There's no like tokenomics around this. There's no expendable ecosystem around this, etc. How many validators do you need to process these other bridges? Well, the fewer the better, because you need to make sure that the bridge is like whatever static. With this thing, the bridge is expendable, and that's key. So it will be nice to see the delays or whatever when we have more than 4 validators, and we'll start seeing this on Monday. Once you guys start joining, getting your Caspers, becoming validators, and Booyah Kasha, the show begins. Now, we don't have the bridge out functionality as of yet. Expect this around September, I would say, to be real. And that's not because we are like, it's going to be that. It's more like we need to launch so many other things before this. It's going to probably take us the entire month of August to onboard most of you guys into validators. Then we need to kind of start, doing those bridges, from Sepolia. Then we probably need to deploy a couple of other Ghost DAOs on other testnets. Then we need to also start creating those multi-chain user interfaces for arbitrage opportunities. Like, it's a lot of shit to do. The bridge is just one of the things, right? Because again, it's an ecosystem. The answers have been that the delta from Mr. IDK goes to the treasury and the validator. That's correct. Ghost Treasury, the last validator. Ghost Treasury and validators. That's a proper description. So not the last validator, but Ghost Treasury and validators. So that fee is what, one second, that fee is what the difference is, what the kind of the income of the validators. And that creates an interesting potentially segue for my next. Any questions, by the way, here? Like, this is the big thing, to be honest. And it looks so simple, but one more thing not one more thing, but a lot more things to show. So it's been a pretty manual process, right? However, well, nothing manual, just manual as far as checking like the status, right? Like the process itself was just put your SF address and the quantity of Casper and press the button, and that's it. Like, that's the process, right? Like, this is fucking simple as hell. But we are working on adding things like that where there's a history of your bridging transactions here, which is its own thing. And then once you kind of click on that transaction, again, we are working on this right now. It will essentially be like how many blocks are kind of in finalization, how many claps are there, kind of applause achieved or not, and if there's applause, then boom, then we proceed further. So this stuff, like that whole Amazon type of view of like, okay, I just purchased my whatever, you know, book on Amazon, right? Let me trace it. So this whole traceability journey will be there as promised. And that's, I think, is the most important part. Nobody has this. Why? And we have to absolutely recreate this from scratch. Nobody has it because, again, that's a fucking Excel spreadsheet. How do you recreate, as I mentioned before, how do you recreate like a person, like you send a transaction and then what you have to say, okay, a person who is supposed to move this entry from one Excel column to another Excel column, he woke up, he went to the bathroom and took a leak. Then he made, himself a cup or herself a cup of coffee. Then he drank some Red Bull and ate a sandwich. And then he sat in front of his computer and like did Control C, Control V by moving the freaking entry from column A to column B. And then he pressed another button to send you the, like, how do you like put this fucking thing into it, right? Like that's why it doesn't exist. Because I mean, I'm saying this like in a funny way, but that's not far from the truth. Like, I'm definitely over exaggerating, but I don't think I'm like okay. I'm exaggerating. I don't think I'm over exaggerating. Let's put it this way, right? Like, I'm not exceedingly over exaggerating. So of course, like some of this stuff is pretty manual. Some of the stuff that they have, Axeler, Layer0, etc., is somewhat automated. But the fact of the matter is, there's no decentralized nation of validators who are responsible for the bridges. So this thing will also be coming up soon. I mean, we're working on this hopefully next week as well. So, and it's not going to delay our launch on Monday anyways, on August 4th. So you guys will be launching a Ghost chain, and then the user interface things we can always change as we go. Okay. So kudos to the team. I agree with that, Mr. IDK as well. Yeah, the team is fucking rock stars. All right. So again, sounds very simple. Does not exist in the industry. Nobody knows how to do it, and we are the only project so far who does know how to do this. Yeah. All right. So that's this, which leads me to like a more kind of more theoretical type of conversation. So disclaimer is needed. I mentioned this on Ghost Whales, on the most recent Ghost Whales, but let's do this one more time. So as I am the state of the industry, and I think I used to discuss this with somebody. I think the fact that artificial intelligence got so much unprecedented attention, and we're all using it, and it's so fucking helpful, blah blah blah, and text autocorrection for some reason that existed for forever, and the Google search that fills your search without you typing the whole thing. Yeah, that's also AI, just so you guys know. I mean, they're definitely, marginal utility for sure, but are they game changers? I mean, and Google says, oh, like our $50 billion investments into AI proves to be correct. Of course, because you fired everybody, you motherfuckers. Like, you fired everybody who you overhired prior, and that's the message to investors who have no idea what they're investing in anymore. But I think it's a super positive thing, as we discussed yesterday with somebody, like, the fact that AI got so much unprecedented attention, and lots of validators, lots of developers left the space of Web3. First of all, lots of tourists left, like maybe 90% of those have been tourists, so it's great that they left. But from the 10% of core, some people left as well. And I think that gives us tremendous amount of opportunity to capture significant market share, because despite the price upticks in Bitcoin and Ethereum, there's nothing really that's happening. Like, there's nothing new. And the only new thing that you may say is like a different story sentiment from perspective that Bitcoin is digital gold, and that's for some reason did incentivize BlackRocks and whatever MicroStrategies of the world to load up, some hedge funds to load up, maybe some nations to sovereign states to load up, right? But I mean, other than the storytelling, like, there's not much actual innovation, like not much innovation. All these layer 2s, where are they? Where's Optimus? Where's Arbitrum? Weren't they supposed to change the freaking Ethereum game? Like, nothing is happening. So I think the two biggest, maybe three biggest innovations we had, obviously Bitcoin, right? Just the first. And when you read the old cryptography research papers from 1990s, the technology was available back then. It's just that Satoshi got it all together and published it, and it was all known. So that's why I didn't really splash much interest for the first couple of years, because it was all known before, because torrent existed prior to that as well already. So so Bitcoin was the first one. Now Ethereum potential was the second one, and why? Because Ethereum enabled to build dApps on top of blockchain, specifically given at least utility from perspective of business logic. So now you could do the smart contract. So we can say that if Bitcoin is, say, gold, digital gold, and Ethereum may be digital contract based, like law oriented or governance oriented structure. And then I would say the third one, for the most part, has been probably Dexys. Now, some people would say Polkadot has been the third one. It introduced the new application of Substrate into blockchain tech, where your dApps could operate in the browser. And while they do operate in the browser, they also have this super flexible governance design. And that's why we use Substrate as well for Ghost. And then let's assume third is Polkadot, and the fourth then potentially something like Dexys, right? But I wouldn't say Dexys, I wouldn't say Uniswap is like the wave. Maybe it's just the overall kind of adoption of anything contractual, such as Aave Compound, Olympus, Dexys, some other protocols. I would assume that are purely smart contract driven. So we don't have that much innovation, and everybody left the space, and I think that just gives us tremendous opportunity to capture the market. Nobody looks into Web3, and the governments don't want, like, the governments say, look here, don't look there. Like, look at AI, yeah, look at AI. Don't look there. Don't look into the industry that can actually disrupt us. AI cannot disrupt shit. Why? AI is based. That's what most people don't think about. AI is based on significant infrastructure of servers that have to be centralized, that have to be managed by the chips that are produced in like 2 countries in the world. Like most of the chips, I would assume, I need to do the research. Most of the chips probably produced in Taiwan. So whoever has power over Taiwan controls the chip industry, and with the chip industry control, you control the AI industry. Every single time Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, ChatGPT, look at the images when he appears in your news feed the next time. He's always in front of a US flag. Every single fucking photo. Like, AI, it's a government industry. And if we try to disrupt governments and obviously build our own nation, I mean, there's no way we can do this with AI. It's impossible. AI is this nice distraction. Look there, look at AI. Look away from Web3, because Web3 is the only industry so far that can actually disrupt what is happening. So now we need to start diving deeper into what we have with kind of as far as economics. And of course, the state of the industry messes up again. So I did myself use the word deflationary a couple calls, and that's wrong. So, because, I'm in the space for a long time, and they always say Bitcoin is deflationary. And I'm like, okay, so kind of, what are we? And then remember that slide where we said, well, Ghost is also deflationary. So let's go through this definition. We're preparing articles on this fact, because we need to be educated on the tech side. We need to be educated on the every single product side, such as Dexys and Olympus, etc. And we also need to be educated on the economics side. So deflationary specifically means that your supply decreases. So deflationary, inflationary, there's no such thing as inflationary assets. So I think crypto people were just funny to create this substance saying, hey, like, we are completely modernizing. Oh, that's nice. We are completely modernizing economics, right? Like, we're creating a new type of asset. Let's call them inflation deflation. There's no such thing as inflation deflationary assets in traditional economics. So there's a thing called inflationary asset. There's no such thing, but how they define it. Inflationary asset is the asset whose supply increases over time. Specifically, supply increases over time. That's what it is. Now, when your supply increases over time, what type of assets do we have like this? Well, US dollar. So, for example, right, so the monetary supply increases roughly by 6.8% based on what I found. And then some people say, well, but GDP also increases. Yes, but real GDP increases only by 3% per year. So therefore, what about that remaining 3 to 4% delta per year? Well, they call that inflation. So US dollar is inflationary, no matter what, no matter who says it, right? Like, no matter whether it's Austrian economists or Keynesian, everybody agrees that US dollar is an inflationary asset from that specific definition. Now, what is deflationary? Deflationary is an asset whose supply just drops. That's it. It has to decrease. Now, those series of articles that we are working on, so far they have different names, but the final name that I have, I'm not sure if that's the final, but okay, let's put it this way: the current final kind of you know topic organizing these articles is Ghost versus Bitcoin. Because before I never knew, like, I could never really articulate, is Ghost better than Bitcoin? They're just different, and Ghost is kind of empowering Bitcoin, and it's still true. Like, it's kind of a proper kind of tone would be to say that Ghost is just empowering all the other blockchains. But the more I'm thinking about the economic structure and architecture of Ghost, the more I'm realizing that Ghost is a lot more functional than Bitcoin, a lot more functional specifically. And in that case, for us to show that to the public, we need to compare ourselves, right? Like, we need to say, oh, Ghost just exists in vacuum. No. How does Ghost compare itself to Bitcoin? So it's going to be Ghost versus Bitcoin type of series. So if Bitcoin is deflationary, then Ghost shall probably also be deflationary. But the thing is this: Bitcoin is not deflationary. The supply of Bitcoin does not decrease. So the supply of Bitcoin increases. Yes, it increases at a specific pace, but lots of us don't know that the Bitcoin is going to be increasing until the year of 2140. That's going to be another 115 years from today. Now, Bitcoin exists for 15 years only, and shit's already hitting the fan on multiple fronts, like with hashing power, with BlackRock taking over MicroStrategy, like everything, right? Like, oh, 21 million supply, it will never change. Well, stuff can change, code can change. Well, no, Bitcoin code never changed. Bitcoin code changed a lot. The original Satoshi's code and current Bitcoin code are not compatible anymore. Like, if Satoshi would like to say, you know what, screw you, I'm coming back to the space. Here's my original code. His code will not be working with Bitcoin today. Bitcoin went through many changes. Some good, some bad. I don't know, but the code changes all the freaking time. To those people who say it's immutable, Ledger is immutable. The supply so far is immutable, but it can change, and the supply can change. So, and we have 115 fucking years for those changes to potentially take place. So, to people who think that Bitcoin is like completely immutable, this and this, it depends on miners. It depends on the consensus. It depends on all the players. So it's vastly dependent on many factors. But let's assume it stays the same. The supply still increases every single day. Now we can say, well, the supply does decrease because people lose coins. Oh, Mr. I literally asked that. lost Bitcoin eventually make deflationary. That's exactly you reading my mind. Yeah, so lost coins do make that deflationary, to some extent. But we cannot say that gold is deflationary because every single year there's a ship with gold that sinks. So we need to think about supply of Bitcoin from fundamental perspective. So kind of lost Bitcoins, lost stock certificates, lost dollars. Okay, what about US dollars, right? Like, dollars also get bad, right? So then US dollars is deflationary if lots of dollars get burnt in a freaking, I don't know, drug fight with some regulators. But fundamentally, Bitcoin is not deflationary. And then the question is, okay, so why was this thing even created in the first place? Like, what is Bitcoin? They wanted to say deflationary because, like, it's deflationary, like the supply is diminishing, thus the value is increasing, but it's absolutely incorrect. What about Ethereum? So Ethereum is actually, surprisingly, again, all this stuff is going to be published in the series, is actually becoming temporarily potentially deflationary. So this is the actual supply and circulation of Ethereum. So it's static. Well, it's kind of almost static here around 120 million ETH, and roughly from 2022 to 2025. So there was an EIP 1559. It's all going to be described in the series. So based on that EIP, lots of fees get burnt. So for example, and again, my statements were completely incorrect. What I stated a couple of calls ago. Now, based on data, based on statistics, that's what we have. So let's assume that I'm a staker of Ethereum, make my 3 to 4% APY. Okay, cool. So it is inflationary. Well, in reality, what's happening is the Ethereum is actually a usable chain, so people actually use Ethereum. So all users of Ethereum, let's assume, pay 8% in fees every single year. Let's assume. So when they pay 4% in fees every single year to miners, of those 8%, half gets completely burnt, and then the other half gets redistributed back to the validators. That way, Ethereum currently is actually burning certain supply. Well, it's not burning it though, right? It's keeping it static. So can that change? Yes, it can change. Is it a fundamental thing? We don't know. Like, things can change. That's the whole point. But so far, based on the current consensus, based on the current foundation, mission, whatever idea, principles, rules, Ethereum is not very much inflationary, but it may change. Right? Like that, like things like that. Now, Ripple. So from the top cryptos, based on CoinMarketCap, XRP is actually the only deflationary coin. So XRP does burn XRP every single transaction, certain quantity of XRP every single transaction. So how much do they burn? They burn, the minimum they burn is 1 millionth XRP per transaction. XRP right now costs around $3 per 1 XRP. So 1 millionth of that is 0.0000 whatever. Like, it's 3 10,000ths of a cent per transaction. So it's like fucking nothing. That's the minimum though. They burn more than that. Again, the state of the industry, there's nothing you can find on, there's no XRP supply that I was able to find over time. So the buzz that I was able to find was just how much XRP was burnt to date. And to date, there were 14 million of XRP burnt. Now, you can say, well, yeah, that's only inflationary asset. Let me load up an XRP, but take your time. So 64 billion of XRP is in circulation. Almost 36 billion is in a treasury. Treasury means controlled by the fucking team. They unleash, I think, 1 billion or so per year. And they decide to either sell it to the public or reallocate it to whatever different purposes. But essentially, it's 36% of the whole supply owned by the team still. And it's been almost 50% of that, I think, owned by the team. And the team is just like, has all this massive supply that can always flood the market. Now, at this rate of of the burn, which is more than 1 millionth, but still only 14 million got burnt over the course of almost 12 years. This represents 0.01% of the total supply. So I did the calculation. In order for XRP, based on current architecture, to burn 1% of the coins total, they'll require 890 years. Not months, years. 890 years to burn 1% of the supply. So yes, XRP is deflationary, but how deflationary is it? You guys decide. I mean, and also, like, yeah, it goes up, but the team has 36 billion of 36% of supply against you, and they can, drop this on the market whenever they want. I don't know. But at least XRP, based on the design, based on the official definition, is deflationary. Okay, cool. So if Bitcoin is not deflationary, if Ethereum is not deflationary, XRP is deflationary, fine. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is inelastic supply. So Bitcoin has not perfectly inelastic, but inelastic supply. What does it mean is, so we have these, for microeconomics, so we have neutral supply, we have elastic supply, and inelastic supply. So the best example, as I mentioned on the Wednesday's call, the best example, or one of the good examples of elastic supply, is any consumer staples, like that is easily producible in today's world. And of course, it's different from, from century to century, from decade to decade is different. Let's assume matches, right? So matches have been pretty elastic supply. It's pretty easy to produce. The technology is known. While 500 years ago, I think matches were extremely difficult to produce, was probably a luxurious item, but today it's super easy to produce. So with matches, if the price of matches rapidly starts increasing, then the supply curve here, the red, will kind of responding to the increase in price, the supply will also start increasing because more factories would like to produce it. And it's going to be possible. Now, inelastic supply, a good example of it is gold. A good example of that is Bitcoin. So inelastic supply, all it means is no matter what no matter how much the demand increases, these, D and D1, those are demand curves. No matter how much demand increases, the supply is somewhat limited per every additional unit of demand. So in case of Bitcoin, let's assume another billion people say, oh, I would love Bitcoin. Okay, great. Bitcoin cannot mine additional 1 Bitcoin per person. The supply is limited. It's not limited, meaning it's not like it's increasing. So it's not deflationary, but the supply is limited, meaning every single unit of demand cannot be responded with a similar increase in supply. Now they say, okay, what if Bitcoin starts costing $1 billion per Bitcoin? Still, we cannot produce more Bitcoins, right? Same thing with gold. What if gold starts costing 10x? Okay, cool. Yeah, there's definitely some mines out there, where the production the extraction will accelerate. But overall, gold is a way more scarce asset compared to matches, for example. So if let's assume gold starts trading at, say, 30,000, like 10x, $30,000 per ounce, the supply will not increase proportional to that increase in price because it's just simply difficult to do that. Oil can increase the supply. So oil is sometimes made elastic, sometimes inelastic based on what the OPEC, the oil cartel, is kind of deciding, right? But overall, oil is somewhat easy to produce compared to gold. So that's kind of the thing. So Bitcoin does have inelastic supply, so does Ghost. So Bitcoin does not have deflationary supply. Ethereum does not have deflationary supply. They have inelastic supply. And Ghost also has inelastic supply. So therefore, kind of like this table that I shared prior had to be edited where DAI is elastic supply, potentially, again, inflationary. eGhost is elastic supply. sGhost is elastic supply, while Ghost is inelastic. Ghost coin is also inelastic. GBTC is also inelastic. Thus, the Ghost coin gives you an ability to have a first inelastic asset, first asset with inelastic supply that produces as dividend, essentially multiplies itself. Like an inelastic supply asset is producing inelastic supply asset. Right, and this is some pretty interesting innovation again. As I still cannot get my head around how cool this concept is. This is actual new money, and what I would like to contemplate about, I'm not on this call. We have 2 more minutes, but overall, in Wales, maybe you guys think about it. I'm thinking like this. We think that money is money. We don't, especially due to Keynesian, due to inflation, we're like, oh, money is actually bad. A dollar is actually bad to hold because it's losing on inflation. Fuck the money, fuck the dollar. But Bitcoin is good money. Let's hold Bitcoin. Okay, cool. I get you. But we completely lose touch regarding how to quantify money. We only quantify money based on inflation. So if it's an inflationary money, let's get rid of it as fast as we can. Let's exchange it for something that is, kind of has inelastic supply, such as Bitcoins or gold or stocks, right? Or real estate. So we're changing elastic supply money for inelastic supply assets. But let's assume you have $1 and I have $1, because money has so many more properties. So let's assume you have $1 in the US and I have $1 in Cambodia. Now, question is this. Whose dollar is more valuable? I have the same dollar as you, but whose dollar is more valuable? And we need to look into certain properties of money that may make it kind of more expensive. So, for example, anonymous. So let's assume you have $1 million and everybody. Oh yeah, let's make the situation worse. Let's assume you have $1 billion and everybody knows about that. and I have $1 billion, and nobody knows about that. I'm a Bitcoin holder. I'm not, but let's assume I am. And I'm Satoshi Nakamoto. I have whatever, $100 billion. And nobody fucking knows who I am. And you have $100 billion, but everybody knows who you are. Whose $100 billion is more valuable? So this is on the topic of, do private money actually cost more than do private money cost more than non-private money? Because I would argue, so I mean, the 100 billion, that's maybe like an extreme example, but let's assume we're talking about $50 million. So $50 million, you're not that high on the radar, right? Like for everybody to like really go after you. But at the same time, kidnapping and stuff like that can already start happening. So if you have $50 million and everybody knows about this, you need to hire, a security detail, right? Like you need to hire bodyguards and shit. Like, so the maintenance of your $50 million all of a sudden comes with costs. While if I'm anonymously having 50 mil, nobody cares, right? So my cost drops. So therefore my 50 million is more valuable than your 50 million, right? Potentially. Then the second question is transferability, right? So if your 50 million is not transferable, my 50 million is transferable. For example, US banks versus crypto. Like you have $50 million in a bank, but the bank can collapse. So you need to allocate your $50 million into different banks, 250,000 into each. So you have to have a lot of banks, like 200 banks. So then you need to like start trusting people. And then every single bank, since you have that many banks, you need to start transferring funds from one bank to another. And every single time there's a transfer, you pay the fee, you wait, and every single time you wait for 1 or 2 weeks, that's also you paying money, right? Because your money is inflationary, right? It's losing on inflation, and you cannot earn that while the money is being transferred. And I have the same $50 million in crypto, and I can transfer this to another wallet within a second. Which money is more valuable? I have the 50 million and you have 50 million. What I'm trying to say is your 50 million probably costs 50 million, but my 50 million in crypto, which I don't have, but let's assume I do, my 50 million in crypto will probably be worth 60 million. It's the nominal value is the same 50 million, but because it's easier to transfer and it's more anonymous, my value is maybe already 60 million. Because that 10 million delta is the stuff you have to pay due to non-transferability, due to paying for bodyguards, due to whatever, like paying for safes, like whatever, security deposit, like whatever, right? Now, advantageous. So which one is more advantageous from different perspectives? So this is not a tax advice, but let's assume we're talking about tax advantage. So if you have $50 million, you need to buy, whatever, assets. And then, of course, there's a model where you buy assets, then you go to the bank, try to loan your assets against it and have the credit and you don't pay tax. Okay, maybe you can do this. Maybe you can pull this off if you are in the US. Let's assume you're not in the US and not in Europe. You still have 50 million in Cambodia. And the banking sector is just not that developed. And US does not, and you don't want to go to the US, right? Because then you have to report everything. You say, screw that. What do? You are fucked. Now, if I have 50 million, maybe I can stake it. But the thing is, let's assume in case of Ghost, again, that's not a tax advice, but in case of Ghost, since Ghost coin is not trading anywhere, it's a utility coin. So any stakes, right, earned on that Ghost are also utility. So they are tax advantageous. Again, not a tax advice, consult with your tax authority, right? But this is like, then if I have 50 million and you have 50 million and you have 50 million, my 50 million, maybe now it's worth 65 million while your 50 million is just 50 million. Finally multiplying, right? So again, like you have your dollars, and that's going back to your, to inflationary actually versus deflationary kind of maybe topic. If you have dollars, they lose value, so you need to invest. So you need to take risk. You have to take risk. You literally have to take risk. Because if you don't take risk, you are guaranteed, like with 100% guarantee, going to lose on inflation. So you have to take risk, either trust the U.S. government with treasuries, or European government with treasuries, or you have to trust the S&P 500 with stocks, or you have to trust the fact that the real estate that you're going to buy is not going to collapse. Like you have to start taking risk to allocate your savings, which is insane. Now Bitcoin says no, you don't have to take risk anymore. Just buy and hold. That's what Bitcoin is saying. Same thing with gold. Just buy and hold. That will protect your purchasing power. But with Ghost, you can potentially multiply your Ghost. it's like similar to how you have your gold, and then tomorrow you come in and now you have 2 pieces of gold as opposed to 1 because you just earned, right? So the fact that the money can start multiplying, what type of advantage does it give me? Like, what type of extra value does it give me? What I'm trying to say is, like, these are just the 4 kind of like, simple ones, like of property of Ghost compared to other assets. Would be nice to create more segments like that, like more properties like this, and just try to quantify how much $1 versus 1 tether that is integrated with Ghost will be different. Like, you have $1 in a bank, you have 1 tether. How is that different? Like, tether is more transferable, for example, right? It's potentially more anonymous, but it's not multiplying. It's not really tax advantageous, right? But if you couple your tether with Ghost protocol versus just having your dollar in a bank account, which one is more advantageous? And how can we quantify? What I'm trying to say is, maybe the fact that you have $1 in the bank is just $1, but that same dollar converted to digital and then integrated with Ghost can give you $5. Like that, and that's the definition of new money, right? So these are the type of conversations I would like us to maybe start having if you guys are going to initiate them in Wales. All right, at this point of time, we're gonna pause. Thank you so much. See you guys next week.